You know that feeling when you check your bank account and technically you have money, but emotionally you still feel absolutely broke? You look at the screen and see $847, maybe $1,000, or if you had a good month, maybe even $2,000. But deep down, there is this quiet, persistent anxiety. You know that one unexpected bill, one car repair, one sudden medical expense, or one slow work month, and that money will disappear like it was never even real. So you keep working, you keep saving a little, you keep telling yourself that next month you will finally get ahead. But somehow, every single month feels like you are climbing out of the exact same hole. And then you log online and hear people saying things like, just invest your money, or start a business, or buy assets, or make your money work for you. And you are sitting there staring at your screen thinking, with what money? Because when you only have a few $100s saved, money does not feel like a wealth building tool at all. It feels like oxygen. You are not thinking about building wealth, or compound interest, or your retirement portfolio. You are thinking about surviving Thursday. But here is the thing. There is a very specific point where money starts to feel completely different. It is not because you suddenly became rich overnight, or because $10,000 buys you absolute freedom forever. It is because $10,000 completely changes the way you think, the way you move, the way you handle problems, and the way you see opportunities. That number is not magic, but it is incredibly powerful. Today, I want to explain what I call the $10,000 rule. Because for most people, the first $10,000 is not just a savings goal. It is the absolute hard line between financial chaos and financial control. Most people think that the life-changing money number is $1 million. And yes, obviously, $1 million would change things. But here is what most people do not realize. The first $10,000 can change your daily behavior and your future trajectory more than the next $100,000 ever will. Because going from $0 to $10,000 is not just about adding digits to your bank statement. It is about permanently removing panic from your life. And panic is incredibly expensive. When you have no savings, every single minor problem becomes a massive red alert crisis. A flat tire becomes immediate high-interest credit card debt. A missed paycheck becomes overdraft fees. A family emergency becomes an expensive, desperate loan. A bad, toxic job becomes something you tolerantly suffer through every morning because you literally cannot afford to leave. But when you have $10,000 saved, something fundamental shifts. You are not rich, but you are no longer financially naked in the middle of a storm. You finally have a jacket. Maybe it is not a luxury jacket. Maybe it is not one of those fancy finance influencer jackets where they stand in front of a rented sports car. But it is a real jacket. It is something that actually protects you. Let's look at the psychology behind this. When you have $0 saved, your brain is forced to live in constant defense mode. You check prices at the store constantly. You avoid opening bills when they arrive in the mail. And you feel this deep sense of guilt after making small, necessary purchases. You say yes to extra shifts you hate, or you stay in stressful situations because the alternative feels too risky. And the worst part is, you cannot think clearly. Financial stress does not just affect your bank account. It literally changes your decisions. When you are constantly worried about money, your brain gets shorter term. You do not ask, what is the best decision for my future? You are forced to ask, what gets me through this week? And that is exactly how people get trapped. They use credit cards, they take bad loans, they accept underpaid work, they delay critical car repairs, and they ignore growing problems until those problems become 10 times more expensive. This is why the first $10,000 matters so much. It creates space. And space is one of the most underrated financial assets in the entire world. Space lets you breathe. Space lets you think. Space lets you say, wait, is this actually a good decision for my long-term future? And that small pause can save you thousands of dollars. Let's look at the actual math of how this plays out in real life. Imagine two people. Person A has $300 saved. Person B has $10,000 saved. Both people have the exact same income. Both have the same monthly expenses, and both get hit on the exact same day with a $1,200 car repair. For person A, this is a total disaster. They do not have the money, so they put it on a credit card. If that credit card charges around 20% interest and they only make the minimum payments, that $1,200 repair quietly becomes much more expensive over time. It is no longer just a car repair. It becomes a monthly bill. It becomes stress. It becomes interest. And it becomes the exact reason they cannot save any money next month. But for person B, the exact same $1,200 car repair is just annoying. It is not fun, it is not exciting, and nobody is celebrating at the mechanic. But it is not a crisis. They pay it, their savings drops from $10,000 to $8,800, and then they slowly rebuild it. The same exact emergency happens, but they have two completely different life experiences. That is the $10,000 rule in action. Money does not just buy things. Money buys options. And when you have no options, life gets incredibly expensive. Here is what most people do not realize. Most financial disasters do not start as massive events. They start as normal life events. A car breaks down, a phone gets stolen, a rent increase happens, a medical bill arrives, a client pays late, or a job cuts your hours. These things are not rare. They are a normal part of being alive. But if you have no cash buffer, normal life is constantly translated into financial trauma. And that is where people start making desperate, fear-based decisions. They borrow from the wrong people. They use high-interest debt. They cash out their long-term investments too early. They sell things they need, or they take jobs they hate. But when you have $10,000, emergencies are demoted to minor inconveniences. That is the first big change. You still feel the hit, but the hit does not knock you down. Think of it like a boxer. If you have no savings, every single punch drops you to the canvas. If you have $10,000, you can absorb the blow, step back, recover your breath, and keep going. That is not glamorous, but it is incredibly powerful. Now, you might be thinking, Alex, if I am struggling to save even $1,000, how am I supposed to save $10,000? That is a fair question. And honestly, the first $10,000 is usually the hardest. It is not because the number is mathematically impossible. It is because at the beginning, you are fighting two massive battles at once. You are fighting the math, and you are fighting your own identity. When you have never saved serious money before, saving feels unnatural. You may even feel like money disappears no matter what you do. So when you start saving, your brain does not fully trust the process. You save $200. Then something happens. You save $500. Then an expense hits. You save $1,000. And then your brain says, great, now we can spend a little. This is why the first $10,000 requires a brand new identity. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying to save, and you have to become someone who does not touch their foundation. That is a different person. The first $10,000 is not built by motivation. It is built by strict rules. Because motivation is cute for about 9 days, and then real life shows up. To make this manageable, do not think of $10,000 as one big, overwhelming pile of money. Think of it in 3 distinct functional layers. Layer 1 is your emergency shield. That is the first $1,000 to $2,000. This money protects you from small, immediate emergencies like car repairs, medical bills, a broken work laptop, or an urgent family situation. This is the money that stops small problems from immediately turning into high-interest debt. Layer 2 is your stability fund. That is roughly $3,000 to $6,000. This layer helps you cover 1 or 2 full months of basic living expenses, like rent, food, utilities, transport, and minimum debt payments. This is what gives you emotional breathing room. Layer 3 is your opportunity fund. That is the money above your basic emergency needs, from $6,000 to $10,000 and beyond. This is where things start to get really interesting. Because once you have real stability, your brain can finally stop looking for danger and start looking for opportunity. You can confidently take a course, buy equipment, move to a better city for a job, start a small side business, or invest consistently. You negotiate from a position of power because you are not desperate. Let's talk about work. When you have no savings, your job has too much power over you. Your boss can disrespect your time, your hours can change without warning, your pay can feel unfair, or your workload can double, and you will still stay. You stay because you need the next paycheck too badly to speak up. But when you have $10,000 saved, you carry yourself differently. You are not reckless, and you are not arrogant. You are not walking into the office saying, "Good morning, peasants. Please do not do that." But you do become significantly calmer. You can negotiate. You can look for better opportunities. You can say no to bad offers. And you can survive a gap between jobs. That confidence actually helps you earn more because desperation is incredibly easy to smell. Employers smell it, clients smell it, and customers smell it. And when you are desperate, you accept less. But when you have a cushion, you make decisions from strength. That is a massive shift in your future. Now, here is where a lot of people make a critical mistake. They want to start investing before they are actually stable. And look, investing is important. I talk about investing and building cash flow all the time. But if you have no emergency fund and you start investing every single dollar, you may end up selling your investments the very first time life gets uncomfortable. That is not investing. That is temporarily parking your rent money in the stock market and hoping life behaves. And life does not behave. The first $10,000 gives you the emotional stability to invest properly. Because once your emergency fund is handled, you can invest without panic. If the market drops 15%, you do not immediately think, "I need to sell because my car needs repairs." You can leave your investments alone. And that is where compound interest gets incredibly powerful. Let's look at the math of consistency. Let's say after building your $10,000 foundation, you start investing just $300 a month. If you invest $300 a month for 30 years and earn an average annual return of 7%, you could end up with over $360,000. But you only get that result if you stay consistent. And consistency is much easier when your life is not constantly one emergency away from collapse. The $10,000 itself may not make you rich, but it helps you become the kind of person who can get rich. That is the ultimate difference. But we need to talk about the danger. Reaching $10,000 can also make people act very weird. The moment some people see 5 figures in their account, their brain starts playing tricks on them. They start thinking, "I deserve a vacation," or "I should upgrade my phone," or "I should buy a nicer car," or "I should finally reward myself." And look, I am not against enjoying your money. Money should improve your life. But the first $10,000 is not a shopping signal. It is a foundation. You would not build the foundation of a house and then say, "Amazing, let's remove half of it and buy a nice couch." But that is exactly what people do with their savings. They finally build a little stability, and then they spend the stability. This is why you need a strict rule. Once your account hits $10,000, that money becomes boring money. It is not vacation money. It is not flex money. It is not "I saw a deal online" money. It is boring, stable, quiet money. And boring money is what keeps your life exciting. Because when your foundation is boring, your life has fewer emergencies. So how do you actually get there? Let's make this highly practical. First, pick a real monthly savings number. Not a fantasy number, but a real achievable number. If you can save $250 a month, $10,000 takes 40 months. That is about 3 years and 4 months. If you can save $500 a month, it takes 20 months. If you can save $1,000 a month, it takes just 10 months. Now, you might hear that and think 40 months feels incredibly slow. But here's the thing. Slow progress is still progress. And most people stay broke because they keep quitting slow progress. They save for 2 months, do not feel rich, and stop. But the people who win are not always the people who make huge money. They are the people who keep going long enough for the boring plan to work. Second, automate it. Do not wait until the end of the month to save what is left, because nothing will be left. Money without a job gets hired by your impulses. So pay yourself first. The moment your income comes in, move that money into savings. Even if it is $50, even if it is $100. The habit matters far more than the initial amount. Third, separate the account. Do not keep your emergency fund in the same account you use for daily spending. That is like keeping cookies on your desk and saying, I will only eat them during emergencies. No, you won't. Move the money somewhere slightly inconvenient. Not impossible to access, just not too easy to swipe. Fourth, use windfalls wisely. Tax refunds, bonuses, gifts, extra freelance income, or selling things you don't use. Most people use windfalls to immediately upgrade their lifestyle. You should use them to upgrade your foundation, because one single $1,000 bonus can save you months of slow progress. Fifth, attack the big leaks in your budget. People love to talk about coffee, and yes, small expenses matter, but the biggest savings usually come from housing, transportation, food, subscriptions, and debt payments. If your rent is too high, your car payment is too high, and your food delivery app knows your emotional schedule, saving will be hard. So don't just cut tiny things. Look for the big leaks first. Before $10,000, your mission is pure protection. Build the emergency fund, avoid high-interest debt, reduce unnecessary expenses, and increase your income where possible. Do not try to look rich. Try to become stable. After $10,000, your mission changes. Now you can start directing more money toward growth, investing, skill building, business ideas, and better career opportunities. But do not abandon the foundation. Keep that $10,000 protected and then build above it. To close, let's look at a simple story of two friends, David and Mark. Both earn $4,000 a month, and both have similar living expenses. David saves nothing because he feels like he will start later when he earns more. Mark decides to save $500 a month no matter what. At first, nothing looks different. Month 1, Mark has $500 and David has a nicer weekend. Month 2, Mark has $1,000 and David buys a few things he wanted. Month 6, Mark has $3,000 and David still says, I will start soon. Then life happens. David's car breaks down and the repair is $1,500. He does not have the cash, so he puts it on a credit card. Now he has a monthly payment and credit card interest. Mark has the same car repair. He pays cash. It is annoying, but it is done. A year later, Mark has rebuilt his savings and keeps going. David is still paying off last year's car repair. Same income, but two completely different systems. After 20 months, Mark reaches $10,000, and he is different now. Not because he is rich, but because he trusts himself. He knows he can set a goal and reach it. He knows emergencies will not destroy his peace of mind. He knows he has options. That confidence is worth far more than the $10,000 itself. Before $10,000, money is mostly defense. After $10,000, money starts becoming offense. Before $10,000, you are reacting. After $10,000, you can plan. Before $10,000, you are avoiding disaster. After $10,000, you can pursue real opportunity. And that shift is exactly how your future changes. It is the hidden power of the first $10,000. It gives you enough room to stop being controlled by every single emergency. You do not need to become perfect. You do not need to save it all this month. You just need to start building the foundation, one decision at a time. And eventually, your bank account changes, your identity changes, and you stop seeing yourself as someone who is always falling behind. You become someone who can build. That is where real wealth begins. Subscribe to Alex Explains Cash Flow, and let's start tracking our wealth in ink, not illusions.